Hey, what's up guys, this is Mirror Image. Welcome back to Reborn Reality. Welcome back. It's been a while since I posted anything on YouTube, but we're just going to go ahead and dive right into another build today. The last one that I posted was the build called Invincible for a tanky warrior that relied on regeneration and toughness and a high health pool. Today we're going to be looking at basically the opposite, a high DPS warrior with excellent support in terms of stacking might onto your teammates. So the crucial trait in this build is called Phalanx Strength, and it's a grandmaster trait. It was added along with all the other grandmaster traits that they incorporated into the game, that they added for all the different classes, and this is one of the new ones that I really liked, and I decided to make a build around it. As you can see in the description for the skill, whenever you grant yourself might, that might is also going to be granted to your allies. It has a radius of 600, and the might that you're spreading to your allies whenever you gain might is 10.5 seconds, so that's a pretty good duration. But before we talk about the other traits in this build, we're going to go ahead and look at the equipment that I have. As I've already mentioned, we're going to be using full berserkers. That's just because it gives us the maximum damage in terms of gear that we can have. The runes that we're going to be using are superior runes of strength, and we're going to want 6 of those. The reason for that is, in addition to the power bonus that you get, you also get an increased might duration. And if you look at the description for the 6th rune, it also says that we get a 5% damage bonus while under the effects of might. So since we're always going to be under might pretty much, having that extra 5% damage bonus is really going to help us with our DPS. As far as weapons go, you definitely need to have a greatsword with you. Of course, that needs to be a berserker greatsword. As far as the other 2 slots, it's really up to personal preference. Right now I have an axe and a mace, just because I like the auto attack DPS with the axe and of course the CC with the mace. But you can always go with the sword and the war horn if you want mobility. If you want to stay at range part of the time, you can use a rifle and a longbow. So it just really depends on what you want to do and what situation you're in. But definitely need to have a great sword. The sigils that I use are superior sigil of bloodlust for the extra 10 power every time you kill a foe. Once you get the full stacks for that, you'll of course have an extra 250 power, which is a nice bonus. And of course the superior sigil of strength, which gives you an extra 60% chance on critical to gain might, which is, like I said, the focus of this build, to generate might and spread that to your allies while also dishing out a ton of DPS yourself. As far as accessories go, you just want to have berserkers ones. It doesn't really matter if you have ascended or just the exotics. Preferably you want the highest ones that you can get. Since I don't play this character as much, I have a couple of ascended accessories, but I also have a few exotics as well. Now we're going to just go ahead and talk about the rest of the traits in the build. We're going to skip over the minor ones and just talk about the major ones, because those are the ones that we pick ourselves. The first one they have is Deep Strike. You gain extra precision for each unused signet you have equipped. As you can see right now in my utilities, I have Healing Signet right now, as well as Signet of Rage. Signet of Rage, you pretty much always want to be activating it for the bonuses it gives you. The Fury, the Might, the Swiftness, those are all nice. And then Healing Signet, I pretty much never use unless I'm in a bind for health because of the constant regeneration that it gives you. So that's always pretty much my favorite heal to use on the warrior class, just because you can get a fraction of damage done to your character and you're automatically healing without ever having to manually monitor what's going on. The other utilities that I have right now are Shake It Off for Great Justice and Balanced Stance. You can always substitute for Balanced Stance and Shake It Off for a number of other utilities. Signet would be nice to have just because that's going to be extra precision. The utility that you must have is for Great Justice. The reason for that is it grants Fury and Might to yourself and allies, and since this build is focused on spreading might to your allies with Phalanx Strength, that's going to be the crucial utility to bring with you. The next trait that we're going to look at is in the Master line, called Rendering Strikes. It gives you a chance to inflict vulnerability on your opponent anytime that you land a crit, and the chance is going to be 33%. So that's basically just increasing the amount of damage that you're doing, which is what this build is focused on. Lastly, the second most important trait in this build, Forceful Greatsword. Basically, you gain might on critical hits with the Greatsword, and it also reduces the recharge on your Greatsword skills, which is really useful. The might that you get lasts for 8.25 seconds, so basically what this does with the Forceful Greatsword trait in conjunction with Phalanx Strength is that you're getting might whenever you crit with your greatsword, and you're also spreading that might onto your allies. So even without having to use a shout or anything else to grant yourself might, anytime you're critting with your greatsword, you're giving yourself might and spreading that to your allies. So not only are you doing lots of DPS, but you are supporting your team by giving them tons of stacks of might. The next trait that I have is in tactics, and that is called empowered. Basically, it increases the damage for every boon that you have on you. And it may not seem like a lot, but if you have just might on you and then you have a guardian in your class who's constantly just spamming boons on your entire party, that's a lot of extra damage and it adds up over time. Next one I have is empowered allies. That basically increases your power to all your nearby allies. So once again, you're being supportive because you're giving lots of power to your allies. And it's 150 points, which is it's just 100 points shy of being as much as having a full stack of bloodlust. So it is pretty nice. When you combine that with the bloodlust stacks you have, that's a lot of extra damage that you have. And you're giving that to all your allies, not yourself. The Phalanx Strength skill is the one I've already talked about. And now that you see how the other traits and utility skills work with it, you can just read the description yourself and see how it works well with the entire build and why this is basically the focal point or the focal skill of this entire build. Lastly, we have discipline, and that's your signets recharge faster. The reason why is I have this particular trait is because I'm using the signet of rage, so it reduces that from 60 seconds to 48 for the cooldown. So you're going to get to use that a lot more often. It takes about 12 seconds off. And then of course your healing signet, which is reduced now to 16 seconds. And I don't use, like I said, the healing signet very often. I usually just let the regeneration take its toll on my character over time. But if there's ever a point where you're in a bind for health, you can go ahead and click that. And since you have the low cooldown time of 16 seconds, it'll be off cooldown very quickly and regenerating you again. That covers it for this build. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them in the comment section below. And remember to keep it real.